Hello, everybody, and today you join us once again on The Rest is Lean. And with me, as always, we've got Alan Lothian. Say hi, Al.
Hi, Al.
And we got Russell Watkins. Say hi, Russell.
Hi, Al.
And I'm John D. And very loosely, we like to call ourselves lean professionals. And our podcast is all about the philosophy, the tools and techniques, the ways that we make lean, continuous improvement, OPEX stick in the real world.
John, before you crack on, can we just have a brief ripple of applause for Alan because he's claiming he has river blindness or beriberi or something, and
Lyme's disease.
he's still here today. So well done, Al.
Dragged himself out from his sick bed just for
Yeah.
you, the
It's not a
viewers
hangover, I
slash
promise you.
listeners. So, Ross, you mentioned our viewer. I think you've been looking up where people are viewing from, haven't you?
I have, yeah. So we distribute this not only on YouTube but also on podcast platforms via Buzzsprout. And I was having a ferret around last night because there was something terrible on telly. Um, and it turns out that we now, for the first 20 episodes, it was My Mother and Your Dog, Al.
Yeah,
But
in that
now
order.
we have 29 countries and territories
Wow.
and 164 cities. Someone somewhere is listening to this, and the downloads are pretty significant. Do you want to know the last five locations that downloaded this podcast? Or
Yes, we do.
Atlanta, Georgia,
Yeah.
Nice.
Incheon in South Korea,
Ooh.
Santa Clara in California, and Belo Horizonte in Minas Gerais, which is in Brazil.
I thought you'd made that up.
No, that's and
Beno
the one before that,
Horizonte.
the other one was Hogwarts. And I can only think we have some Weasleys listening because of the family connection. All of that, by the way, was for that gag.
I think today I'd like to kickstart our conversation with the term team leaders, which I'm going to use very, very loosely. Um, if we're in manufacturing organizations, then I think most of us have got the picture of a team leader, somebody who's lower level management, looking after a group of people. It could be anything from 5 to 30 people, maybe working in an area of production or a function within a factory, looking after their best interests, and very often, if I'm honest, doing the do as well. So, team leaders, um, I certainly get asked a lot into businesses to talk about training team leaders, existing team leaders very often, or developing new ones, finding new ones within the
hmm
business. And I want to ask you a kind of a negative connotations question, but it might lead to an interesting discussion. What's the missing element? What's the missing source? What's the failure within team leaders that we most commonly see or that you find most interesting? What is it that a lot of them lack?
There's what they lack and what would most of them benefit from having.
Yeah,
And there may
that's
be
the
a,
positive way of putting it.
hmm
Yeah,
they're pretty good at mopping up. They're pretty good at containment. Countermeasure not so strong to keep problems from coming back. But
yeah,
even before that, they're not so good at spotting abnormality and acting on it, even though they have the ability to spot abnormality because generally they come off the line and they're calibrated to whatever their process is.
yeah,
Reacting to when things are starting to go Pete tongue, sorry, English slang, starting to go wrong. Start reacting when things are starting to go wrong, or even better than solving problem, reacting to abnormality, they have a sensitivity, particularly around their people. So they put all of whenever they're looking at their area, walking around, they're putting people at the center of it rather than things and bits.
yeah,
hmm
yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you.
So that's my answer in terms of their skill. My answer in terms of what's mostly missing is quite often they're not clear on what their job is, on what their role is,
Yeah, I'd be 100% behind that one.
and
hmm
that's not their fault.
No, And I think that part of that is how they get the role is very often chosen for being the person who stuck it the longest.
Yeah.
It could be all manner of things, but it may not be because they've already got the skills, and then companies don't provide them with too much extra in the way of skills. They hope they'll grasp it as they go along.
Mm.
Al, have you got any specifics where you feel that there's a hole?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, great points that Russell's made. I think definitely the one around um, root cause, finding root cause against rather than just treating symptoms. The one I put down straight away was being able to manage upwards as well as downwards.
Yeah,
I don't think you've touched on it very, very quickly there, John. Right at the end, your statement is in the sense of I don't think that's necessarily caused by them. Actually, that's caused by the business. Um, I think when you say what's the failing, it's the missing or the appreciation that when you go into a team leader role, you're no longer that's different to say a senior operator role.
yeah,
I know companies names of positions can be different, but for many people in a team leader or supervisory position, they normally end up in that position because it's their step up from an operator level.
yeah,
And I think actually what we don't do is, and this is a business failing, I would say, as opposed to a personal failing, is the decisions that businesses make to promote people for
yeah,
the wrong reasons. And I would say time served.
yeah.
So that's more, no, but so I imagine it doesn't really answer your question because you're saying the failure of the actual
No.
person. So the
Oh,
managing upwards as well as downwards, I would say, but actually where how that manifests itself, no one is born with those skills. It has
no.
to be developed and honed.
Yeah,
Okay. Now, but part of it comes in going back to your point earlier, John, is the business choosing who's going to be the next team leader. And I think the thought process that many businesses have it can be developed.
yeah,
Just because they've been in that working in that cell or on that line or within that value stream for 5 years
yeah.
should not necessarily mean that they will make the best team, the best team leader. And
100% agree.
yeah, and but if we still see today so many companies that fall through that because the pressure is they are a great operator and they
Yeah,
don't want to lose the operator.
yeah,
Okay. So they feel the next step up is make them a team leader.
yeah,
Great. But plan ahead how you're going to give that person the tools to
yeah,
to be successful as a team leader. You mentioned it before as well, John. Is so often we throw people into that role and hope they'll develop. The business hasn't really given them that thought to give them
no,
those extra sweet spots. So, being able to manage upwards, what does that mean? Greater time management, the amount of time on the tools against doing, or how I would put it, the tactical versus the strategic. You're not doing all the tactical anymore. You've got to come away from the tools for a period of time and do more of the strategic
yeah,
stuff. Okay. Um, you need to be more empathetic.
yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah.
generally that happens. I mean, you know your mates. And that's the biggest
Mm,
thing. No longer they are your mates.
No, you
yeah.
you belong you belong nowhere. You're stuck in a no man's
You're
land.
stuck in the middle. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So there's loads of
Well,
facets,
I
and I
think
think
I think that statement that's stuck in the middle
Mhm,
bit, no longer your mates, which sounds so harsh, links to probably one of my two that I constantly pick up. That a lot of the time they've not really grasped or been given the ability to grasp
mm,
accountability.
mhm,
The fact that it's theirs, they own it now. They are not the best welder or the welder's rep.
mm,
You are there to look after and manage and lead
mm,
the welders to achieve the customers, the business's targets. I don't think people have stepped across that line, and that just seems to be a very, very common thing. And
mhm,
again, to both of your points, links back to how they're chosen.
mm,
They've been the welder for the longest. They're the
mm,
best welder.
mhm.
Or worse still, oh, we had to make them the team leader because we really felt a need or a
Yeah.
desire to pay them more.
Mhm,
So we made them team leaders so that we could pay them more.
mhm,
It's your business. If you want to pay them more, pay them more.
mhm.
And if you're embarrassed, oh, but we can't pay them more without the excuse of a title. Why is that? or we don't want to tell everybody else that they're
Mm,
better.
mm.
Grow up.
Yeah.
You see, but that's a reactive thing, John. That's because of the absence of a pathway.
Yes.
And you'll both have observed
Mm,
the same as I have, that when people want to go beyond operator and want to progress and earn more and have more responsibility, they have a choice. Either they migrate towards managing people, or managing
Yeah.
stuff. So they either go operator and then maybe setter, but into team leader and then cell leader, ops manager, etc. And then it's all the people based stuff. Or they go from operator to setter to maybe technician and then
mhm.
into maintenance or facilities or engineering, and they work on the machines and bits and that.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
It's having some kind of pathway, if I can see it, I can be it.
Yeah.
But John, carry
mm,
on. You had a second
mhm,
point.
Yeah.
mhm,
So my second one is probably related now I'm talking out loud. That people don't very often start to get that helicopter view where they step back from welding tow bars
mhm,
and start to look at how their area's running and how their people's happiness and well-being is and what is the business's strategy and step back and look at the whole and go, where can I help? They're just so used to being in amongst the hammers and spanners
Yeah.
that they go around and chivvy people along and show them how to do hammers and spanners or poke them in the ribs to do hammers and spanners. They don't step back and go, hello, we're making all the wrong stuff all the wrong way. Give me 10.
mm,
It's difficult to
mm,
do that, John, though, isn't it? And
mm.
this isn't isolated to team leaders, it's supervisors and managers as well, because it's
Yes.
always raining somewhere. There are so many
Yes.
variables. So some to do that, you have to consciously ignore the fact it's raining somewhere and some part of my factory's crying.
Yes.
And that's a
Yeah,
bold thing to do.
Yeah.
exactly.
Because you've got to trust everybody else to, yeah, it's raining, they'll have to mop up.
Yeah,
I'll sit out here and
yeah.
think about something else. So I think for most folk, team leader is the first experience of a managerial, supervisorial, more senior role within a
Mhm,
business.
Yeah.
And it is that first experience of,
mhm,
yeah, you've got to make this practical, physical, or transactional thing happen,
mhm,
but you should be thinking about how it's happening, why it's happening,
mm,
how can it be better. And it doesn't matter if you're the CEO or the team leader of welding,
mm,
you still got to stick your head up above that little thing now and again.
Yeah.
And people aren't good at it because
mm,
they've not been picked because they're good at it, and they've never been trained to be good at it, all of the above. So
mm.
I think there's some big holes in what our team leaders are, and they're mainly not their fault.
How well they do the team leader role depends on what you want them to do, and not every business will need a team leader to do the same stuff.
Yeah.
If you've got a very technical capacity, capex intensive business, you're asking them to do a different job to if you've got a very people intensive business. And
Mhm.
there is no set ratio of team leaders to operators.
Yeah.
Mhm,
Of course, it needs to be the right ratio so they can do what they need to do, but it can be between 5 to 20. It depends. It
Mm.
depends.
mhm,
So don't be wedded, I'd say to people. Secondly, Al, you made a point about managing upwards, and can I give a really practical example of how I show
mhm,
team leaders how to manage upwards? And that's when they have a problem and they've been moaning about something to their gaffer for a long time. I say, all your boss hears is you crying, and they don't want to hear you crying.
Mm.
What you have to do is talk their language, and you talk their
mhm,
language by understanding 80/20 Pareto and using data.
mhm,
Your gaffer lives and breathes by data and something else he can sell upwards, because what you want to do is make his life easier to achieve your goals.
mhm,
Yeah.
So if you could say, my machine is shit, I need it sorted, okay? And that's just crying.
Yeah.
mhm,
You get nothing. If you said, right, I've looked at the last 2 weeks, number one on my Pareto is short stops. On the short stops, it's down to this sensor. If we spend 50 quid on that, it's going to save you, I reckon, £1,000 a month. Do you fancy some of that, my boss? And they're going
mhm,
to say, I do, thank you very much.
mhm.
And the second bit, John, in terms of team leaders, have you both, it's a question to you, have you both observed what I have? And that's very often when team leaders get made up, they go through a valley of despair.
Yeah.
And if we're lucky, somebody plucks them out of it and they make it through.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I've put a program into a couple of businesses where we look for next team leader and we do a preparatory thing so that that valley of despair is more shallow.
Yeah.
Ah.
And there is a sequence that we've put in for
Mhm.
what to train them in, and it's a take a bit off existing team leaders, maybe do some of the team briefs at the start of shift, maybe do some of the scrap recording, maybe they answer a few and-ons, but you get them, you lure them into the water and say it's nice, it's warm, and then they
Yeah.
get used to doing a bit of leading.
Yes.
Practical activities, and then you layer on a little bit of admin because they won't be used to doing that, and then you layer on a little bit more of the other people stuff. So the value of despair is important.
But yeah, how should we choose or select the right team leaders? Um, the next generation of team leaders.
Mhm.
Um, Now there's a couple of things that come to mind I wanted to throw in the pot. My experience from the Japanese car plants, who do this sort of thing pretty well, but it is a different culture. I don't mean Japan, I mean just
Mhm.
car plants are a different culture to an awful lot of businesses. Honda, particularly, I know their team leaders are mainly elected. So the rest of the line push forwards the poor soul who's not going to get paid significantly more, who is going to get far more stress
A
and
world of pain for 50p an
tasks.
hour. Go
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
But is the honor of being their team leader and look after them. Now, the result of that is good and bad. You very often end up with a conscript,
Mhm.
but the reason that that conscript is the person in question is generally they are well regarded and well respected by the people around them. People around them trust that individual to look after them. Um, and again, that's got some negatives as well. Look
Mhm.
after them as in cover for them, or look after them as in make sure that they're being pushed, promoted correctly. So I think they end up with decent team leaders, but that's obviously not a vehicle for most businesses to say, yeah, you lot choose your team leader. We're going to pay them 50 pence extra and a donut every Thursday.
Mhm.
Um, Let me know who it is, and then I'll go tell them.
Do you know what?
That's an angle.
That's an interesting point, that John, because for me, straight away, I thought this might be a contentious issue. But for me, you mentioned the culture um, in car plants are different, but actually there is a distinct difference between our Japanese cousins and the Western world
Mm.
overall, in the sense of the approach that you're taking or that Honda are taking, I can see would fit very, very well in a Japanese plant because the
Yeah.
general culture, they value the position. It's a statement of
Honor,
honor,
pride is
pride.
valued a
I
lot.
don't think that's as bad. I don't think that's as strong in the Western world, right? And I think actually the dangers, and I've had personal experience as well, is almost oh well, we're pushing that person to do it actually because we don't quite like him, or he'll give us an easier ride.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that adversely causes the same problem as Russell mentioned earlier, because if that person ends up in that role, they're actually pushed into despair.
Mm.
Yeah, because they're probably not ready for it.
Yeah.
All right. So for me, I think what I do like, and Russell mentioned it, is if a business is looking, there has to be a constant preemptive strike, as I would call it. They're planning for the next phase. So, for example, we use what's called an organizational capability assessment. Okay. And that basically you're looking at the org diagram and you're looking at who's in the positions currently, right? And you're looking at the people who they reported or other people within the business. And you're saying, right, start creating a list of people who are ready to take a step up now, or
Yeah.
even two steps up, ready in 1 to 2 years, or ready in 3 to 5 years. Because you will have some people who are just quite happily staying where they are.
Yes.
And I don't think there's any, I personally don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think you need to force
No, no.
a square peg into a round hole, right?
No. If we don't have enough of those people, we're in trouble
Yeah,
as a
exactly.
business because
Exactly right.
everybody's
Exactly right.
aspiring to climb the ladder rather than make ladders.
Correct. And if you move them too quickly, and I won't speak of the specific company, that's exactly what they struggle with at the
Mm.
moment. It's too many people up wanting to push up, and they're accepting that and not enough below. All right.
Yeah.
But the point I was making is it comes back, it's planning effectively. So if you've earmarked a handful of people in the business who you think are ready for the next step up, but aren't quite ready yet, it's about putting them into scenarios, like Russell said, to allow them to do some safe training, to give them some exposure
Mm.
to what it's like to be in that role and see how they react to it, rather than throwing them into that role, which is like throwing them into a lion's pit for some people and just seeing how they get on.
Try,
Yeah.
try before you buy out.
Exactly right. And we know as well, one of the things that we do in it with in our Japanese culture, which I think is works really very well, is for a lot of people, they don't hit the shop floor before for at least a month or two, because they're actually trained in a safe space where they can understand not only the tactical side of things, but the actual cultural elements of a business. So they're already feeling and thinking differently before they hit the shop floor. Is
I'll,
that fair
I'll,
to say?
I'm with you, but that's a hell of an investment for the 90% plus of SMEs who are struggling to get people today, and it's a bit,
For,
Yeah.
Totally right. If you've got an SME, but the thing is, you can start off small, because if you've got an SME, you can start. It's the what? What's the one person? We're not saying you've got to go through everybody. A manager's got to take a step back and look at those people. And as we've said before, you're thinking about who's going to replace me, because I'm thinking about the business as opposed to myself.
well,
And it might be one or two people. Mhm.
that takes us on to an important point. Can I answer the question, John?
Please,
Mhm.
please.
Mhm.
Who's going to replace me is really important. So the question that I'll leave hanging that I'll pose and then go past is: are you recruiting for this team leader role, or are you recruiting for the next ops manager in 10 years, 5 years' time? So
Mhm.
that's a consideration. Uh, do you need to just fill this? Because the reality is some people make excellent team leaders and don't want to go any further.
Mhm.
They want to manage their junior football team outside of work and they want to maintain time for
Yes.
that. And they don't want to be getting their phone dinging all night and earning another 30 grand a year because of course they'd like to, but they have a balance in their life that is important to them. So, but in terms of how do you find the next one, I always go back to able to learn, willing to lead.
Mhm.
That's your start point. Able to
Mhm.
learn. Do we believe they have the capacity, capability to learn more? Willing to learn, are they applying that? And do they want to accumulate knowledge and skill? And able to lead, willing to lead, have they shown that they want to be at the front of the pack and bring others with them?
Mhm.
Mm.
Then they need to understand product, process, and people a bit. So I would go back to attributes and decide whether you're recruiting just for this role now or for later.
Agreed. Totally agree. That's good.
On that point, I think even early doors, you can spot the difference between somebody who would probably make a great team leader and those who might make good beyond team
Mhm.
leader.
Mhm.
And for me, it's small things, but your analogy about coach your local football team, I think brings it out really, really strongly. That's why
Mhm.
I thought of this. There are team leaders who are very much people. They thrive being part of a team.
Mhm.
And yeah, the analogy of a youth football team manager is the perfect analogy for a team leader on a shop floor.
Mhm.
Somebody who loves dealing with that group of people, some of which are going to come up with all the ideas and run with it, and you just pat them on the back and say, "Yeah, yeah, don't get too big." Others who aren't really pulling their weight, and you're encouraging them. Others who have got issues and problems of all sorts, and you put your
Mhm.
arms around them. There are those team leaders, and they make brilliant team leaders.
Mhm.
But sometimes you take that same team leader and you push them up the tree and they really struggle. And the difference is they're not good at working alone. They are very unhappy working alone. They
Mhm.
feel isolated. And what makes them great is the gang. Some team leaders you take from the pool, you put them in charge, they can do all of the teamy stuff. Maybe they're not as good as the first guy I described, but they can do it. But equally, you can pop them in a cupboard and they can function. They're
Mhm.
happy. And I think that is to Russ's point, do you want somebody for this position? I'm going to go and spot the
Mhm.
person who looks most and sounds most and feels most
Mhm.
like a youth football manager,
Mhm.
coach type versus somebody who does that now and again, but often goes off and does their own
Mhm.
little bit and ponders what's going on with the world.
That's a really good point, John. That's a really good point because it raises a question. The question is, let's say we had a theoretical manufacturing business where you had the best team leader, the
Yeah.
best supervisor, and then the best ops manager.
Hmm.
Strikes me that the best ops manager wouldn't have been the best team leader when they were back doing the team leader bit because it's a
Mm.
different skill
Mm.
set.
Mhm.
So, are there, we need to consciously tolerate people being average team leaders because we know they're going to be an excellent
Yeah.
manager. And can
Yeah.
you spot that early
Yeah,
enough?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And also your bit you mentioned earlier on the Russ about you'll get certain people who will get to a certain level and then their work-life balance kicks and says, look, I actually don't want the extra 30 grand a year for all the stress. Right. Okay. What's interesting in that point is a lot of that or some of that decision making is actually based on how they perceive that role will be based on the current person in that role. And
Yeah.
what I would say to people is that because don't base your decision based on how they are dealing with the current position that they're in. That doesn't mean that's how you will deal with it.
Hmm.
So people can, on the flip side, people can be put off because they're basing it on the current manager and how they're
I
succeeding or
can't be
failing in that
like Bert,
position.
therefore I'm not applying Bert for Bert's job.
Yeah, exactly,
I
Well,
exactly,
just
and that's
like
and that's a
Bert.
real. If you think about it, that's really difficult because that's the only shop window in a lot of cases people will see.
Good expression, Al.
Yeah, it's the only shop window. But I would say to people, look, I personally say, look, if you've got a chance, grab it with both hands and try it.
Mm.
What's the worst that can happen?
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
All right.
that's tremendous.
Everything you've done, whatever happens, good or bad, will be an experience. And you guys know my phrase: what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Right? Okay. Give it a go. Grasp the opportunity with both hands because you never know. You might just make the best decision you've ever made.
Al, I'm in
Mm.
tears here. Your Nietzschean man peers into the abyss, man finds himself speech was beautiful.
Right. That's my work here is done, gents.
Can I wrap this because I think we're coming to the end of this
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Go for it.
with a quick story about Jim.
Gin or
Now,
Jim?
Jim
Oh.
I'd known and worked with over various companies for years. He was a team leader and then a supervisor. By a country mile, he was the best team leader and supervisor, cell leader, group leader I ever worked with in terms of managing his people. He could get a bunch of leery, unhappy, unmotivated people
Mhm.
and get them singing for him.
Mm.
And he'd do it by force of his personality. He was very inclusive. You know, there were three lads end of one line once that were a nightmare. He took over that line, got to know them, started calling them the boy band, and they
Ah.
and they were absolutely singing for him. Here's the kicker. Jim didn't like to follow a system. The flip side of that coin was that you couldn't get him to maintain basic discipline. So he got his people working well, but he the weakness was a little bit too much in that he wouldn't follow quality discipline. So
Mhm.
sometimes this is a trade-off. You compromise, and quite often you
Mm.
compromise, don't you?
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Question is,
Exactly.
what do you want to compromise on in your business?
Yeah.
What's more
Yeah.
important?
Right. So,
Uh,
thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. And again, if you want to get involved, please send us a comment, stick something in the area below the video if you are watching / listening on YouTube. Send us an email if you're listening on any of the platforms. And that will be to Al. We haven't got time for Russell. Not now. What's the email address for people to use?
the rest is lean at gmail.com.
Thank you very much. And we'll see you all again very soon on The Rest is Lean.
Yeah. See you
Bye.
guys. All the
Yeah.
best. Take care.